Welcome to CISO Interviews, where Affinia hosts cybersecurity executives sharing career advice, actionable insights, and tips so that you can enhance your career and succeed as well.
Andy?
Misha, how are you?
Good. And we're live. Congrats on your recent, much-deserved promotion to partner. So exciting.
Thank you. I'm really excited to now be a partner here at Wild.
So what changed? How is now that you're a partner? What's different?
Well, I'm still learning what's different. I suspect it'll be a couple years before I know all of the changes. But the way I look at it is an operating partner is a very tactical executive. You have an expertise and a specialty, and you're just going to dig in on that specialty among your portfolio. Some operating partners are embedded. You're really in the private equity firm world. That's how operating partners work. As a partner, in addition to hopefully having that expertise, you're also providing more governance across the portfolio. You sit on more boards. I was already doing some of that as an operating partner, so I got to sort of see what that would be like before I became a partner. You're more part of the decision making around the investment strategy and the how you just run the fund and run the company.
I see. And is there a focus on specific technologies or specific geographies, markets, stages?
Yeah. Well, we're an interesting fund because everything is cybersecurity, and the vast majority of our companies are either founded in Israel or by Israelis. We have some that are Israelis in America, some that are Israelis in Israel, some that are going to make the shift between the two of them. We obviously, because we're seed stage, we're most heavily focused on the U.S. market. While some of our companies will start to branch out, in the early stage is where we very heavily focus. That said, when I look at the companies that I'm on the board of, which I'm providing sort of the oversight support there, those actually tend to be our more mature companies. So I sort of have one company in the seed stage and three companies that are Series B, Series C companies.
I see. Interesting. So it's fairly broad mandate, and I think it's goes to your strengths and your such a wide range of different experiences. VC, and prior to that, technology and vendors and military, and it's a very interesting career arc, which you are uniquely suited for that role given all the different aspects that you touched upon along the way. And it kind of jives with the topic of this conversation, which is around life after CISO. The post on LinkedIn I saw recently, a couple months ago, it was tongue in cheek, but it said something along the lines: everyone in cybersecurity wants to be a CISO. Everyone who's a CISO wants to do something else. And I think it went
Pretty
viral.
much.
It went viral. It had over 1,000 likes and reposts and comments. It really touched the nerve. And also from talking to members in the Affinia community, I see a lot of people pondering what to do after, but also sometimes alongside of what they do, they explore, speaking at conferences or writing a book or getting engaged as an advisor with cybersecurity startups, picking up a consulting gig along the way or pausing their career and going the vCISO route. So all those different tracks. What have you seen? And obviously, probably different things work for different people, but in general, what's some of the trends you see where people make mistakes, and where do they go that usually people end up in a happy place?
Yeah, so it's going to depend by the person. So anybody listening, I'm going to give you my best advice, but it might not sound right to you. So listen to your heart on these ones. So I tend to sort of separate where people go. So sometimes people want to remain in the problem-solving mode, and sometimes there's a move to CIO. I really love solving problems by supporting the team. I really like the management of technology, and I actually think in a lot of companies the CIO and CISO are sort of headed on a collision course anyway. So this is a good way if you just want to sort of stay in that C-level operating role, supporting the rest of the business. I see a lot of folks who do that, but you should recognize that you get less freedom when you go to that role. It's a more tightly constrained career field, and is the CIO than the CISO. I know a lot of amazing CIOs, but when CISOs are like, "Oh, I'm so frustrated," part of your frustration is you have too much choice. Like, how do you pick what you're going to do while people are yelling at you? Whereas the CIO often has no choice about what they're going to work on because they're so over constrained by the rest of the business. I see people who like to build technology as a way to solve problems. And so maybe they go to the CTO route, stay inside their company or in an established company, and they're, a product innovator. I do see some people go off to found companies. Not really as many as you would think, but we do see, that happens, still quite a bit in the industry. Some of them are very successful, some less so. The biggest challenge that I see for people who say, oh, I'm going to go, be a CTO and found a company, is that they really didn't think about sort of what go-to-market really feels like. If you've been a CISO inside a corporate environment, you may have never dealt with the product side of the house, and being a founder is sort of all about the product side of the house. So that's sort of what I think of as like the let's go just fix things and solve problems. And then I have a joke, because I do a talk about this. And your other option in that is go be a farmer. Go fix completely different problems, but you're used to shoveling manure, so you can go work on a farm and do that. Then there's what people often think of as sort of the post-CISO, like, still want to use my CISO experience, but I want to do something different. So you started with a group that I put into the category of pundit, which is you want to be an author, you want to be a columnist, you want to go do public speaking. The thing I will point out is you must really like having no income if this is the route you're going to go. Very few people make money writing books. So if you don't have that experience, I wrote an amazing book. Every reader should, or every listener should read it. It's 1% Leadership, the best book on leadership out there. I will tell you, hour for hour, what I made on that is about minimum wage. So this is not the way you're going to go be wealthy. But this is for people who don't want to have the responsibility of being operationally, accountable for fixing problems, but still really do have a good point of view. Right? And that's important. You should acknowledge, if you want to go down this route, that like people should listen to you and be like, I hadn't thought about that take. That's interesting. It's going to drive the conversation forward. If you're interested in potentially doing that, if you're not speaking at RSA every year, like that's where you cut your teeth on this one. Is how do I get to RSA? I know how to pitch talks. I know how to deliver highly rated talks. At least every other year, I'm getting told by RSA that I'm one of the highest rated speakers. Like if you're not in that boat, maybe this isn't the place you want to go to.
Interesting. Is there a door number 3, kind of outside of building, fixing things, where you're gainfully employed on the one hand, and then you're a pundit and you have a lot of opinions that you're free to share, you have distribution, but you're not getting paid. Maybe there is some place where you can deploy your experience, your expertise, your knowledge gainfully, without the risk and responsibility that comes with the CISO role or CIO, CTO.
Yeah, so 2 different ways people often go. So that's the MCISO or the VCISO. Are you a marketing CISO or are you a fractional one? And so the marketing CISO, often we see people with the title like advisory CISO, field CISO, security evangelist, security advisor, strategist, whatever. People who like to schmooze, can articulate a message, are very good at generating a lot of content. Now, the joy of being a marketing CISO is you don't have to have like the amazing hot takes that people are going to be like, oh, that's amazing. And in fact, often your CMO will not want you to be out there like scaring people. They want you to be able to deliver a message. So you must like traveling. Go to customer events, go to conferences, represent your company, help build the content for your company. But almost every security company is hiring somebody to be their field evangelist, and a lot of them are hiring retired CISOs. It doesn't pay as well as CISO does, but it pays very respectably. Like it's a well-paid position in many companies. You should recognize you'll be asked to do sales pitches, that you're going to be a seller. Now, you might not be on a quota, but you're kind of going to be judged on how often you're helping bring business in the door. Help people with intros. You will have sales reps in your company who are like, hey, I need an intro to this friend of yours. And you have to figure out how to make that intro where your friend is like, stop selling to me. So you have to learn the fine art of saying things like, I have a rep on my back. I want to know when I can introduce them to you so that, it's not wasting anybody's time. But if now's not the right time, tell me and I'll tell them to back off for a couple months. But I can't buy you forever, because otherwise they'll just beat down your front door and ignore me. On the flip side of that is the vCISO world, the people who are consultants and experts. The challenge that people in the vCISO world have is you're constantly selling also, except you're just selling yourself. Very rarely do you get gigs that are multi-year gigs in the vCISO world. There are some people who built great practices. Look at Brian Howley over at Side Channel has built an amazing entire vCISO company, which is sort of fractional CISOs across a portfolio where they want an executive and they've also got a security team. But most people who are in the vCISO world are basically consultants, coming in, doing a 3-month engagement, and then you're out selling your next engagement. So, the vCISO world and the fractional CISO world, hour for hour is one of the highest paid. Except most of your hours are not going to be billable because you're out trying to sell what you're doing.
Interesting.
This episode is brought to you by Afinia, a community where 2,000 CISOs and other senior executives network, learn, and succeed together. To apply for your complimentary membership, please visit www.afinia.com or click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
Then we have the things people say that's like, oh, I want to just help. I want to be an advisor. I want to be a director, or I want to be a VC. And here's what I generally say. If you wanted to be just an advisor, you should do this for fun. You should think of it like angel investing, right? The reason that you angel invest is not to make money. It's nice if you make money, but you angel invest because you want to help a company succeed because you think that's a problem space that needs to be solved. So advising at the seed stage is the exact same thing. I look at, I think, of all of the advisor shares I've ever gotten advising companies over the last 7 years, I've had 0 exits. Not a single one of, really. Now, none of them have gone out of business. So positive side, 0 failure rate. Negative side, 0 success rate also. I've not gotten to redeem any of that equity. I'm optimistic that maybe next year will be the year for a couple of those companies.
So it's not something you can tender in the subsequent rounds?
Very rarely. Advisor shares are almost, you need an exit to be able to sell those. Unless a round is so oversubscribed that even the early stage VCs have gotten out and there's still people looking for that. No, you're basically in it for the long haul.
I see. It's interesting.
That's the challenge of being an angel. Angels will get out before investors or before advisors, but even angels are often left behind. I did recently have an angel company exit and I got my money back. So it was okay. It wasn't the best exit I've ever had, but it was an exit. And it was not a negative exit.
Interesting. And so that's the advisory side. And you mentioned some CISOs may consider going the advisory route, but again, it's very long term and it's not something that you need to rely on to pay immediate bills. Is VC really an option? We see some that are successful, but are these just the outliers that survivorship bias? We don't see anyone who tried and didn't really work out.
So I think there's 3 different routes in the VC world that I've seen people take. Right? So one is basically the route I did, which is, when I worked through 2 routes, right? So I started as a venture advisor. I was just advising a fund and, you're a dilettante, right? You get to have fun and you see a lot of companies will have the CISO in residence, which is a 1 year to 18-month gig where you come in, you get to learn the VC world, you support the portfolio, but nobody expects this to actually be your career shift. At the end of it, you're either off to go found a company, go back to being a CISO, retire, whatever that's going to be. And that pays usually cash, some carry. Now becoming towards a partner, you can do it in an established firm. There's a few CISOs who've done it. That's not a huge route. I've also seen people who've gone in, founded their own funds. But now you have to learn how to raise money with limited partners, which is an entire discipline that most people forget about. That you spend almost as much time managing your limited partners as you do managing your portfolio. And so that's a lot of work that if you said, oh, I want to go create a fund, getting your investors is hard work. And just,
family offices that get pitched a lot, or institutional investors, a completely different breed with totally different expectations and incentives and requirements. It's
And within the VC world, that's the one place that non-competes get pretty heavily chased down, is people are like, you can go do outside work if you want, but you can't go do deal flow, go get investors or anything, because that's directly competitive with the core value proposition of a VC fund.
For sure. That's interesting.
But the most important part of being a VC is you should acknowledge that you are going to likely have close to negative income for a while. Like, you may have draw where you're pulling in some amount of cash, but it's not going to be the sort of cash that you're like, wow, I make my money in cash. The reason you're a VC is because you have carry and you want to make money when there's big exits. So you have to be prepared for, you may spend 5 years living mostly off of your own savings.
Yeah, so it's very kind of, it's a different game. You're not running a company, you're just preparing for this home run and setting everything up. And it's really, you make money off the outliers that return the fund and pay for all the duds in your portfolio, which inevitably will be the majority of them. And people are not, people, I don't think everyone understands kind of the mechanics and the math behind the VCs. It's really
people, and like we're an outlier. Like, while we were actually recently named, I think, 9th highest performing VC fund by PitchBook.
Congrats.
And the only cybersecurity focused one in that category. And one of the things for us is, like, we don't have duds. Like, we've had companies that were like, internally we're like, not the best of exits, but it's, you returned your all the capital. Like, that's pretty actually amazing that you consider that to be not a great exit. Because in most companies, that's like the median exit. And if you're lucky, like, out of a fund, you get like 1 or 2 great exits. And we've been fortunate. Like, we generally don't have companies that have negative outcomes. Everybody ends up with a home somewhere. Some of them are amazing, like the Exoniuses, the Orcas of the world. Some of them are like, oh yeah, no, they solved a problem, but they got acquired, somewhere along the way. And it was an okay acquisition. But that makes us a huge outlier in the industry.
Yeah, well, it goes back to your expertise and your Midas touch, I guess.
We like to think so. And fantastic team of people I work with. I think we're about 25 people strong. And like, that's the most important thing. When you're looking for your post CISO gig, who are the people you're going to surround yourself with, that you're going to work with? Because as a CISO, you get to build your team. As a post CISO, you're sort of starting over again from a career perspective. Like, you're now the executive individual contributor. So you're coming into somebody else's organization, and you've got to make sure that that's the environment and the culture you want to be in.
Totally. Well, they say you're the sum total of the 5 people you're closest with. So be very
careful about who those 5 people are.
How you curate this group. And Indy, kind of on that topic, all those different doors all those different rabbit holes people can tumble into. Where do you see people make mistakes? What's some of the pitfalls people stumble into without realizing? And
so I think the biggest one is people don't actually plan the step after. That I've seen people who take a gig that is a short-term gig, whether it's a marketing CISO, doing the advisory work, whether it's, working within a VC fund, as a CISO in residence or something of that nature. And they really don't have their mind wrapped around the fact that they have 18 months. At the end of the 18 months, they're going somewhere else. And so that becomes a big surprise for them, because they get comfortable. They're like, oh no, I love doing this. And it's like, yeah, but that's basically an internship. Like, in a lot of companies, we have you think of it as an executive intern. It's like, oh yeah, this is an internship. It's going to turn over at some point. You're going to be asked to leave if you don't leave on your own.
Interesting.
And it's not that you're being fired. It's that's the nature of that role. It's a 12 to 18 month role. And at the end of it, if you're an advisory CISO for a company, like, I was Orca's advisory CISO for the last 3.5 years, and that was an amazingly long run. Like, and at the end of it, we're like, okay, it's done. Like, you have a security evangelist, you have a CISO now, like, you don't need me anymore. Right. And it was a mutual, we're like, yep, time to move on. Let's move on. And now go be a partner. And I'm having a blast with that. But I've seen a lot of people who it's like, they sort of overstay that welcome, and they get very cranky when someone says, okay, time to go.
Interesting.
This episode is brought to you by Afinia, a community where 2,000 CISOs and other senior executives network, learn, and succeed together. To apply for your complimentary membership, please visit www.afinia.com or click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
And in this vein, I think part of the reason that, going back to this original joke on LinkedIn, that everyone who's a CISO wants to do something else, it's probably a multitude of factors of why this is the case. I think part of it is just the stress that's difficult to sustain over a long period of time. Part of it is just your life is dependent, your success is dependent on not just the technology you bring in, not just the people in your department, but on all other people in your company doing what they're supposed to, not clicking on the links. And so, in other words, your success, personal success, career success, is often dependent on people outside of your immediate team in the larger organization, and also impacted by all the bad actors out there, from, I don't know, teenage hackers and hoodies in mom's basements. There are fewer and further between now, and more importantly, kind of state-sponsored actors. So often you don't know. I mean, and often we see, not often, but occasionally we see that after a breach, there's a change of guard at the C level. So I think on back of everyone's mind, I mean, obviously people are aware if there's an incident, something, I'm get the blame. So what are the alternative options? And as they say, you want to dig the well before you get thirsty.
Yes.
And in this vein, it's probably a difficult suggestion, but because everyone is super busy in their day-to-day work. But what are your suggestions in terms of whether it's networking, whether it's doing coffees with people who have embarked already on this route, whether it's VCISO or VC or speaking circuit? What would be your recommendation of what actionable steps people can take while still being a CISO, preparing them for this jump so that it's not too sudden and it's not too disruptive, both from kind of personal, both from the lifestyle perspective, but also from the financial perspective as well?
Yep. So I think I'm going to do the financial one first, which is you should start saving money. Like, if you are waiting to get fired because something happens and then you're going to go do something else, you should have, like, I know people get told you have a 6-month nest egg. I mean, if you're a CISO, you should have a 2 to 5 year nest egg.
Oh, wow.
Like, that's what you should be aiming for, because you want to be picky for your next gig. Like, there's a breach at your company and you're the scapegoat and you go, like, it may take you 6 to 9 months to find another gig. You don't want to be out of money. Right? You've become accustomed to whatever your lifestyle is, whatever that's going to be. So financially, like, if you're a CISO, you're closer to the end of your career than the start of your career. So you need that nest egg and that retirement plan. Like, I'll be very honest, like, we have had, the home that we live in, very, very nice and fantastic, but it's part of our nest egg. And we had, as part of our emergency plan, was, well, if we need to move, we'll move and sell the house. Like, we didn't need to. We managed to bridge everything. We just sent one kid off to college. We're setting another one next year, and then we're moving and getting out of this house. We don't need to spend this much money on a house.
Interesting.
So you should have a financial plan that deals with the fact that you might be unemployable ever. Like, just think about that, of what would your financial plan look like if you're a CISO, your company goes under, you get laid off, whatever it is, and you don't refuse to do a CISO job and you don't know what your next thing is. Great. How are you going to retire on your current wealth? That said, now let's figure out how to plan so you don't have to do that. You should start doing the work now. If you want to become a marketing CISO or a pundit, are you out doing pundit work right now? Are you practicing how you write narratives? Are you doing guest op-eds? Almost every major outlet in the security world will take guest op-eds from CISOs. So if you want to go write for SC Magazine, for CSO Online, for Dark Reading, like, they will all happily take you. And for most people, their companies would be happy to have you do that. They'll hand you somebody in PR that will help you learn to craft narratives. You can get coaching on how to write op-eds. Go read other CISOs who do them. You can learn and figure out, okay, here's what I want to do. Is that what I want? Oh, maybe I don't like doing that. Just go advise companies. Don't advise companies for the money. And in fact, honestly, I would tell you, if you're a CISO today, especially given some of the noise about conflicts that have come out recently, maybe you want to consider just doing advising work pro bono. You're passionate. You've got somebody who's got a startup, and you say, look, I'm just going to advise you. No, I don't want carry. I don't want equity. If you feel like you must, give it to a charity. Like, figure out what you want to do there, but so that you now carry no conflicts, but you get to learn. Like, am I really passionate about doing this? Because you're not going to make any money on it anyway. Now, if you are so passionate that you really want to be invested, just ask to be an angel. Get onto the cap table, like throw $20,000 at the problem and be like, I'm an owner. Like, you're not compensating me for the work. I'm compensated by the fact that I make money in this investment. You are still conflicted, but it looks a little, I think, better if it's I'm an angel investor rather than I'm being paid to be an advisor.
Interesting. And you see people who take this route, is it usually there is a VC involved or a band of angels or angel list? I see there are a number of
all of the above, like lots of different ways to get involved there. Often find a VC community. You can get involved. Come to go to their parties. Like at RSA, like we've got a party. Teammate has a party. Teammate does their CISO village. If you want to get involved in an Israeli startup, there's a ton of them that would be happy to talk to.
Yeah, there's Icon next week in San Francisco.
Icon's in San Francisco. Go to Icon. Meet people there. And if you meet the VCs, honestly, the best way to become an advisor is to start as a buyer. Like if you're a practicing CISO today, if you don't buy from startups, nobody wants you as an advisor, likely. They're like, you don't understand how to tell a startup to sell to you because you would never buy from one. So it's
and that could be a design partner or POC kind of stage. It's but you need to have the internal pool and be prepared to bring in your org someone who is cutting edge, but maybe not fully baked in terms of the product.
Right. So reach out to a VC and say, hey, I would love to hear about your portfolio. I want to tell you what my problems are so you can tell me if you've got somebody who's solving them. And there's not a VC that isn't going to take that call. Like anybody who's listening to this, reach out to me. I'll happily walk you through that. I've got another partner that'll happily do so. We've got, 2 principals and a couple associates that like literally this is what they do almost all day long. It's just talk to CISOs and say, hey, what are your problems? Here's who's in our portfolio. Are you interested? And if you say no, we're like, great, awesome. Do you want us to talk to you again in like 6 months? See what's up, see what, participate in one of our surveys because we do a couple of CISO surveys a year. And the people who do that, then at some point we'll be like, hey, we've got this team that's ideating. Would you be interested in hearing their pitch? Like we think, and it's not that we even want you to buy, like the ideation pitch is like no strings attached. You come in, they pitch you, and you tell them what you think. You get to be very upfront and honest, especially when it's Israeli founder. They're like, no, please tell me that my baby's ugly so that I can make a better baby. Like that's literally how they're going to think about it. And I will tell you that you are interviewing for an advisor position every time you do that.
It's amazing. It's so funny that it's probably mind reading is one of your superpowers that probably comes with a VC territory because it's exactly the question I was planning to ask for the listeners in the Affinia community. What's the best way to get engaged with YL? But you just answered my question. Yeah,
like feel free. Anybody can reach out to me or reach out to Justin Somaini. Used to be the CISO at Unity and SAP and a bunch of other places. He basically runs our entire CISO community. Like he's got a handful of folks who do that, but I'm happy to also, I'm a partner. I can do the same thing, but either of us would be happy to run you through like, here's our portfolio and let's get you connected and on our list so that when we are ideating with somebody and you're like, oh, that's an area I've got expertise in, we'll get them in front of you.
Absolutely. Would you be open if we put your maybe LinkedIn URL in the show notes so people can reach out?
Yep. Great. And if somebody does reach out, if you just click connect with me, I will probably not return it because I'm like, who are you? But if you're like, oh, hey, I heard you on the Affinia show. I'm very interested in being part of the YL network. Let me, reach out to me. I'd be happy to do
100%. 100%. Andy, thank you so much. This was so interesting. I already can see quotation mark, like everything pulled in quotes and the punchlines. It was very, very punchy, very, very useful and very action oriented. Plenty of action items, which is I love. And again,
awesome.
Congrats on your promotion. So it's congrats on your success, and looking forward to exploring ways how Affinia community can help. And we support the cause. And I think wonderful things come when excited people join for a conversation. CISOs and startups. I think.
Yep. Absolutely.
And however we can help broker, we're very interested in that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you. And thanks to all your listeners.
Absolutely.
If you liked this episode, please subscribe to this channel and visit Afinia.com for more information about your complimentary membership, or click the link in the show notes.